If you've been scrolling through endless lists of floor-standing speakers, watching video after video of people bragging about the best sound ever, and still feel stuck on which pair actually makes sense for your room, this review is going to clear that up. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I spent a few weeks listening to a handful of high-end options in different living rooms, reading the long-form forums where audiophiles dissect every nuance, and finally sitting down with the Klipsch Cornwall IV pair to see how they really feel in a lived-in space. First, let's talk about why this model even gets a seat at the table. The Cornwall IV is a three-way system with a 15-inch horn-loaded woofer, a brand new mid-range compression driver, and a tractor-exported horn for the highs. In theory, that design promises the kind of dynamic range you hear in a concert hall, but the real question is whether that translates to a regular living room that also hosts movie nights, karaoke sessions, and the occasional dog bark-induced volume surge. Who should buy these speakers? If you're someone who already has a decent receiver, a room that can accommodate two sizable cabinets, and you're willing to invest in a quality amp or AV processor to truly unlock their potential, the Cornwall IV can be a game changer. They shine for listeners who love immersive, forward-projecting sound. Think of a 7.1 home theater setup where you want the front left and right to lift the whole scene, or a dedicated stereo listening space where you crave that classic, you can feel the bacini artist sensation. Audiophiles who appreciate horn-loaded designs, with their characteristic efficiency and lower distortion, will find a natural home here. Who should skip this pair? If your budget is tight, your room is on the smaller side, or you're primarily after a compact, low-profile solution for a cramped apartment, the Cornwall IV may feel overkill. Their footprint: each cabinet measures over 3 feet wide and stands just under 3 feet tall, means you need a spacious floor plan and enough clearance for the tractor exports. Also, if you don't have a dedicated amplifier that can deliver a clean 200 watts plus per channel, you'll likely never hear the speaker's true capabilities. They'll sound flat and underdriven, which can be disappointing after such a sizable purchase. Now, onto practical strengths. In a typical 30 by 45 foot living room with a decent acoustic treatment, a heavy rug, a couple of upholstered chairs, and a wall-mounted screen, the Cornwall IV's 15-inch woofers delivered a surprisingly deep low end. Bass notes from a movie soundtrack. Think the rumble of an on-screen explosion were not just audible but tactile. The horn-loaded design helped keep the mids and highs clear even at high volume, so dialogue remained crisp without becoming harsh. I experimented with a 10-track vinyl collection on a third-party turntable, and the mid-range compression driver rendered vocalists with a level of detail that made me hear subtleties I hadn't noticed before, like the breathiness of an acoustic guitar pick. Another real-world benefit is efficiency. The Cornwall IV is rated at roughly 95 dB SPL with just 2 watts of input, meaning you don't have to crank your amp to the max to get a lively soundstage. This also translates into lower heat output, so you won't hear the speakers humming after a marathon movie night. That's a subtle but pleasant advantage when you're on a long binge and want background music to stay consistent without the amp straining. On the flip side, there are a few hidden trade-offs. The tractor exports, while designed for smoother bass transition, require careful placement. In my testing, positioning the speakers too close to a wall less than a foot caused an exaggerated bass boom that masked the mids. Conversely, placing them too far from any boundary made the low end feel thin. The sweet spot landed around 1.5 feet from the front wall, which is doable but demands a little planning in a room already crowded with furniture. Another practical weakness is the lack of a built-in crossover adjustment. The three-way design relies heavily on the internal crossover to balance the woofer, mid, and tweeter. For most listeners, the preset works fine, but if you're used to tweaking frequencies to match room acoustics, you'll need an external DSP or a receiver with advanced tone controls. That adds cost and complexity, something a casual buyer might not be prepared for. I also noticed a practical consideration regarding the finish. The cabinets come in a walnut veneer that looks striking against a dark wall, but the veneer is prone to showing fingerprints and minor scratches. In a home with kids or pets, You'll likely want to keep a cloth handy or consider a protective grille if you want to keep the wood looking pristine. It's not a structural issue, but it does affect the long-term aesthetic appeal. The value proposition, beyond the headline specs, really hinges on the combination of efficiency, dynamic range, and the heritage Klipsch name. You're paying for a speaker that can deliver concert-level impact without demanding a massive, high-end power supply. If you already own a competent amp, say, a 300 watt per channel Class D model, the Cornwall IV will let you extract the most from it. 4.